All right, do we have any changes to the agenda today? Nope. So no need for a vote if we're not changing it, right? All right. And then I guess Ryan, update on in-person meetings.
Sure. So the MPO staff and the policy board are planning to return to in-person meetings in July. I think it will be the practice that your next meeting in July will probably be held in person here at the TJPDC office, as well as the other committees. So just a heads up about the return to in-person meetings. There are some exceptions, which have been outlined in the policy, but for the most part, members are expected to meet in person. And we will talk later about your July meeting, as there may be a slight change in either the day or the time in which you meet. Regarding the minutes, the draft minutes from the March 15th tech meeting were included in your packet. A revised draft was sent out yesterday. There were no substantive changes, just some minor clarifications, but they are available for the committee to approve.
And so the updated minutes, does that just like replace the old PDF that's there?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, I will entertain a motion on the minutes. Anyone have any corrections or a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, I think we got a motion from Joanne or Christine. The other one want a second?
Sure.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's just vote by acclamation. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes unanimously. Next up, July MPO Tech Meeting. Back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So your regularly scheduled July 19th meeting actually conflicts with a state conference. So MPO staff is proposing to move your meeting, which would be regularly scheduled for July 19th to July 26th. I think we noted on the agenda 1 p.m., but I think 10 a.m. Will work. So the request, the proposal is that you all move your July 19th meeting to July 26th at 10 a.m. and hold a joint session, possibly with the Rural Tech Committee.
Sound good. Does anyone have any conflicts at either of those times, 10 or 8, 10 or 1 on the 26th? For me.
I'm sorry, did you say that it was going to be a joint meeting with the rural tech?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kevin, one of the things that we're working on is to get a speaker from the Association for MPOs to come to that meeting. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to combine the groups so they could both listen to that presentation, which will be on the federal funding opportunities through the IIJA.
Okay.
Cool. That'll be exciting. I don't think we've had one of those since I've been on the commission, which, wow, I guess it's been almost 4 years now. All right, so we need a vote on changing the meeting time, the date.
Yes, sir.
All right, I will entertain a motion to move it. Do we just want to specify a date in the motion while you guys figure out whether 10 or 1 is better?
I think 10
For a
a.m.
date.
is 10 a.m. is the time.
Okay, all right, I'll entertain a motion to move the meeting to July 26th at 10 a.m.
I'll make a motion to move the meeting to July 26th, 10 a.m.
Motion from Kevin. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Joanne. All right, can you call the roll, Ryan?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Mr. Roy Stolzenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Kevin McDermott,
Yes.
Ms. Jessica Hirsch Bowery,
Yes.
Mr. Chuck Proctor,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Luis Carazana,
Yes.
Mr. Jawan Lee.
Yes.
Roll call to take, Mr. Chair. All in favor.
We're getting. That sound coming from Ryan? Are you have people there with you, Ryan?
No, that wasn't me, but I can hear everyone, so, but no, so the roll call's been taken, all were in favor.
Great, motion carries. All right, next up, we have the Unified Planning Work Program. Sandy and Ryan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So in your packet, there was the draft FY23 UPWP. MPO staff has posted this draft on the website and the social media for public comment as required by 15 days. There were no comments received to date. What you see on your screen shows the FY23 work program funding by source and the staff recommendation or request is for the MPO Tech Committee to approve of the document being sent to the MPO Policy Board for consideration and for vote and adoption.
Do we have any comments? I'll just note one, I think the dates are still wrong. I think we mentioned it last time, but in the table of comments or table of content, it still says FY 20 and 21. And then down in the schedule, the public participation process, all those notes or all those dates are also 2021. That's 25 of the packet.
Okay, we'll make sure, Mr. Chair, that is updated in the draft that's sent to the policy board.
Great. Anyone else have any comments, corrections, motion to approve with revised dates?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion
I'll
from Kevin,
second. I'll second.
Christine seconds. All right, can you call the roll?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Mr. Roy Stolzenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Kevin McDermott,
Aye.
Ms. Jessica Hirsch Bowery,
Yes.
Mr. Chuck Proctor,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Luis Carazana,
Yes.
Mr. Jawan Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the roll call has been taken, all were in favor.
All right. Next up is Smart Scale project update.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. The MPO Policy Board staff submitted the 8 projects that the MPO and PDC requested for Smart Scale Round 5. And we are in the process of preparing for the final applications, which I believe will have official word around June 1st. In your packet, there was a map showing the buffers of those 8 projects. MPO staff is going to use the site plan for this area that's shaded in purple is representing the city, and the area shaded in orange is representing the county. So MPO staff will be looking to represent the city and the county to get those site plans to our office as soon as possible. We do have a shared folder set up. City and county staff were notified of this SharePoint folder, so the hope is that we get those sooner rather than later. And the final applications are due, I believe, August 1st. If there are any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer those.
So the 3-mile buffer was confirmed for the Rivanna River bike ped bridge.
Yes, sir. Mr. McDermott. There was no downshifting of that to a tier 1.
Correct, Kevin. I ran it by Brooke Jackson from OIP to confirm, and she says as long as we show it as a new bridge, it would be covered under the 3-mile buffer. That will give us a lot more advantages from an economic development standpoint with that application.
If there are no questions about the buffer, I would like to direct the committee's attention to the 2 resolutions that were provided in your meeting packet. This will also come before the MPO Policy Board. These are required for the submittals. The first resolution is a resolution endorsing the submission of smart scale applications requesting transportation funding by localities. And the second is a resolution for the MPO and PDC project.
All right. I would entertain any motions on one of those.
Hey, I've got a question on the first resolution. You want to say smart scale? I mean, you could quote the reference up above as HB2, but you want in the second lower part, you want to say smart scale? In that whereas, the last whereas. So people understand, I mean, because we're titled it smart scale pretty much now all the time. It was HB2 because they changed the name because of the issue with North Carolina. Just something that we might want to revise. Because it is called smart scale, is not HB2. was only HB2 for the first round.
Chuck,
Okay.
you're recommending a revision in the final whereas to replace HB2 with smart scale applications.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Then can it HB2 just be removed from the entire thing?
Well, that was part of the bill where it was established, but that's where in the fourth whereas they talk about where it was established, and it was called HB2 initially, and it says now titled Smart Scale. So we should just entitle it Smart Scale.
So in the title of the resolution at the top, remove
Oh yeah, it should be
HB2 up there.
We can either way. I think that's just a reference to the bill that it was, but we could call it just Smart Scale. We don't refer to it as HB2 at all anymore.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially in the last whereas where it's standalone. I mean, the first whereas I think is pretty explanatory, and the title, either way, I think up to whoever makes the motion, I guess, can decide. Do I hear a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion if I can get clarification on the language. It is to recommend this resolution to the policy board to approve, correct?
That's correct.
Great. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the resolution with the stated revision to remove HB2 and replace it with smart scale, recommending the resolution to the policy board for consideration.
Great. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion from Christine, second from Stephen. Can you call the roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Mr. Roy Stoltenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Kevin McDermott,
Yes.
Ms. Jessica Hurst Bowling,
Yes.
Mr. Chuck Proctor,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Palmer,
Yep. Yes.
Mr. Luis Carazana,
Yes.
Mr. Jawan Reed.
Yes.
Great. Motion carries. So on to the one for the MPO submissions.
Yes, sir. We will, as staff, the same as with the previous resolution, we will remove any reference to HB2.
Oh, and sorry, I just noticed this. I was confused why they were opposite in my packet. The first one is for MPO submissions, but in the title it says requesting transportation funding by locality. So they both actually are titled that.
Yes, sir. We will make that change to the resolution. This should say submitted by Mr. 25.
It still could be on behalf of the localities, because the localities limited by the number of applications they can submit. So, but the MPO can submit the additional applications that a locality may have want to submit. They just didn't have the capability to submit.
Fair point. Okay, so this next motion is going to be for, I guess, all of the projects for the city, county, and BDC. Does anyone have any correction to this or a motion?
Yeah, it's just the reference to the HB2 at the top of the page. The other reference is already right in the lower part of the whereas parts.
I have a question. For the project names as they're listed for Albemarle County don't match up with the project names that we submitted or that we're including in our resolution. Chuck, does that matter? They're getting to the same point, but they're not exactly the same wording.
They should be the same as the title for the application. So if you guys can make that correction, I noticed on the, under the project submitted by Albemarle County where it says continuous green T, they have T spelled out. It's not T spelled out. It's just T, capital T period.
That's in the description, not in the title. So
Yeah, it's in
I
the
mean,
description.
the description, I'm guessing, wouldn't matter as much if it's exactly the same, because some of them
Yeah,
have more
the
detail or
description
less
doesn't
detail.
matter. I mean, you could put the short description in there, but if you, from the applications, if you wanted to, but as long as the title is the same, we should be fine.
Okay, Jessica, do you remember what changed it? Because we had some trouble with the previous 251 where there's a lot of different names floating around for it, the 250 corridor one. So I think we want to make sure that these are right. Jessica, do you remember which ones or might be different from what we have?
I think it's literally all of them, but I provide the updated names to Ryan following this meeting?
Yes, we can make the motion to agree to the revisions to match the titles of the application.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I also would like to maybe bring Michael Barnes in on this. I know that not to mention this, we made some changes to the descriptions for the pre-application that may not align with what you all submitted previously. So yeah, Jessica, Kevin, I'll get with you and I'll see if I can pull Michael in on this. So.
And if we could check with city staff as well to see what we're calling that Fish Street project. I don't actually know, and we don't have any here, so make sure we get that right.
Yeah, it's Michael Barnes here. Yeah, I think the city right now, their current one does run from Harris Street to Cherry. That's the way it's titled. And Ryan, I can work with you on the titles for everything else.
Can I
Is
ask
that-
it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks, Bill. I was just going to say though, is in the city, is that called Fifth Street Extended there as well? I don't know where extended ends and where just regular Fifth Street is. Is there a difference?
That's a good point, Kevin. We'll be sure to double check on that. I'll be honest with you, I'm not completely sure when the changeover happens myself.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that whenever it said extended, that was for the portion within the county and not in the city. Like I think Old Lynchburg is the same way and Avon maybe the same way.
I once sat through a very extended argument on that subject.
It's confusing. Hey, I have a really dumb question. Just because I'm not seeing it on this list and we've talked about it so much, the bridge across the Rivanna, is that like a TJPDC submitted project and so not necessary to be on this list, or?
That was an MPO project. So that was in the that was number 4 in the last motion.
Oh, okay, it was on the previous list. Okay, I didn't see it there. Thanks.
Yep. I gotta say, I kind of like continuous green tea. Sounds better than gasoline alley.
Chair Silzenberg, I'm happy to attempt a motion if there's no other discussion.
Please do.
I move that we recommend, can you slide to the top of the resolution? I move that we recommend the resolution endorsing the submission of smart scale projects with the requested revisions to remove reference to HB2, change the titles and the descriptions to match the application titles and descriptions given by the jurisdictions. And the motion is to recommend the resolution to the policy board for consideration. Did that cover everything?
Do we need a correction on green tea as well?
Oh, I
Well, that's
covered
fine.
that in revising the descriptions. The titles and
Okay,
descriptions
sorry.
would have
Titles and
provisions.
descriptions. Got it. Perfect. All right. Motion
I'll
to proceed.
second the
We have a
motion.
Second from Jessica. All right. Can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Roy Stolzenberg,
Aye.
Mr. Kevin McDermott,
Aye.
Ms. Jessica Hirsch Ballin,
Yes.
Mr. Chuck Proctor,
Yes.
Ms. Christine Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Luis Carazana,
Yes.
Mr. Jawan Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that completes the roll call. All were in favor.
Great. Next up, we have staff updates.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
Mr. Chair,
sorry.
if you don't mind, I'd like to go back, if Sandy is still on, I do want to point out that there were, or there was a design concept, showing the bridge for the Ravenna bicycle and pedestrian bridge project. It did not make your packet, but it is shown here on the screen. This proposal, this design came from VDOT. From my understanding, it's more cost effective or less costly than some of the prototypes that this community and others have seen before. If Sandy wants to add, I know that there is sort of a small modification in the previous, in the actual design of the bridge. There used to be a kink here. My understanding that kink has now been taken out. It's just continuous straight line, straight bridge across the river.
Yeah, we just wanted to present after the policy board had their discussion on which bridge alignment to select. They VDOT basically worked to develop concepts or designs based on the feedback that they got from the policy board, which is that they wanted the alignment that connected at East Market Street and that there was a strong emphasis on reducing the cost to make the application as competitive as possible. So this is what they have come back with. The design is a little bit different than what we had discussed, but again, this was the lowest cost option and there seemed to be a little less preference for design considerations at this site. So that went into the decision making. One of the more significant differences is that the concept that we initially were looking at had one pier on the sediment island in the middle, and this one has 3 piers. Again, having more piers means that it's a less expensive bridge, which means that it's likely to score better in smart scale, but it does have a different impact. And then also removing that bend in the river. So the connection points on either side are in the same place. It just removes the bend. So it's a straight bridge instead of a angled bridge. But Chuck or Michael can also answer any questions if you all have any.
Yeah, I was going to add, we followed up with designers. They're actually, as part of the panel, we reached out to the panel last week and they provided some feedback about possibly including lighting. They did question the number of piers, so we did reduce it. It was originally looking at 5 piers and we're reducing it to 3. But the beam seems to be the least expensive concept. We are still proposing a deck with concrete deck with railing. And it's basically going to be a gradual grade up to out of the floodplain from one end to the other, because the west end is in the floodplain and the east end will be out of the floodplain.
So Chuck, just to clarify, there will be 1 pier on the sediment island again. There will be 3 piers total.
There'll be 3 piers total. There probably will be 2 piers in the sediment island instead of the 5 that are shown here. You'll have it actually could be all 3 piers could be in the sediment island. I don't have a final design, but they'll spread it out and you'll have 3 piers, but there won't be any piers in the river itself.
And do we have a sense of what the cost difference is for 5 versus?
It's a little bit more expensive. I'm not sure what the cost is, but we're weighing the maintenance cost versus the, because, I mean, the more obstacles you have in this floodway, it causes an area where debris can be held up by the pier itself. So if we can reduce the number of piers, it's going to reduce the maintenance cost for during flood events or following flood events. So that's one of the things we're taking into consideration.
I think aesthetics was a concern as well with the more piers versus fewer.
Correct. You were at the meeting, Kevin, so.
Yeah, we didn't want something that just dominated the view when you're
Yeah.
looking out there at the river, and we thought having more piers would do that.
Other comments, questions? I guess I'll just say, I like the idea of reducing cost, since that's obviously the denominator in our smart scale score, and I'd like to see this happen. I mean, that all makes sense to me. We talked about this last time, but I'm not in love with the alignment, just in dumping you out at the Woolen Mills site. So I guess my question is, like, here we have our pedestrian path up to Peter Jefferson Parkway or State Farm Boulevard, right? Are we looking at, how having a bike ped outlet to the west to get through that parking lot? Or are we just kind of, assuming that people are going to wander through the parking lot and find their way to Broadway? Or is that out of project scope?
Yeah, that's a little bit outside of the scope for this project. Again, it's not that we're not aware that is a potential consideration that we need to continue to evaluate, but for the purposes of this project, it's really to establish a bridge that connects to the existing transportation network. And so this meets that criteria. It doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities to continue to improve the connections from the bridge, though, in the future. I don't know if Albemarle County or FDOT, if you all want to add anything to that.
I mean, the only thing I will say is that we needed to have a connection point on either end that was legitimate point. So that's why we ended up running the trail all the way up to South Pantops Drive. The roadway on the west end is a logical termini. So, and that's why we looked at those two as the logical termini. Just to put the bridge in without putting the trail on the east side, it didn't have a logical termini, so we couldn't actually put that in. So that's why we ended up adding the trail all the way up to the roadway on the east side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I guess, obviously there's plenty of time until it gets built, but I guess would it then be up to the county to work with the developer at the wool factory to, since obviously they wanted this quite badly and got supervisors to push for this alignment, should we get them to get a safe route from that western terminus to Broadway? Kind of informally push them to do it, or have there been talks with that?
Yeah, I'll chime in here. There have been some talks. We've opened up the discussions with them. There are other issues with circulation in the Woolen Mills site that we've been working on with them, and we're hoping to kind of wrap that into that process. So yeah, we're aware of it, and we have started talking to them about ways that we could better accommodate bike ped throughout the site, both connecting over to Chesapeake or over to Market Street and also up to Broadway and through the site connecting to the bridge. We're also getting ready to start in the I think sometime later this summer or fall, we'll be doing a phase 2 of that Broadway blueprint. And in that one, we're going to be really looking at a lot more details about bike ped connectivity all along Broadway and into this site and how that interacts with the river. So I think we have some opportunities to work through some of those issues. Of course, you know, we are kind of limited in what we can push the developer to do, but so far they wanted this and they are interested in, I think, working with us. So we'll keep doing it, and you know, hope to be able to involve as many people in that process that are on this committee and others as well in that.
Great, that sounds good. And I mean, I guess, you know, the flip side is anything we can do on East Market Street, which I guess is a small stretch in the county and then in the city, but obviously that's an extremely constrained right of way. So I'm not sure there's much to be done. All right, anyone else have questions or thoughts on the bridge?
I have
Jessica?
a question. Chuck or Michael, could you say more about the lighting situation? Is that going to be priced out as part of the project cost estimate?
Yeah, that's what I've talked to the designers and our L&D staff. We're going to include a line item for lighting. One question they had was, we talked about whether we wanted to light the trail or not. We were definitely looking at low lighting on the bridge itself. And we were going to put a line item in there for lighting, but we weren't going to get very specific with that. So if you guys have any input on the trail itself, that would be good. That was one question that came up, I think, yesterday.
Well, I asked the question, so I'll jump in with my thoughts. I really think if we're going to be expecting people to safely use the trail into the evenings, we have to include lighting. I just don't see it as being a transportation grade project without including lighting throughout the entire thing.
Okay, I mean, we can do that. that was one of the questions that I just got yesterday. So I'll follow up with them and let them know that we want to include it all the way up to Peter Jefferson or South Pantops.
Other questions, comments? Ryan, could you send out that PDF to us?
Sure can, Mr. Chair. I'll do that after the meeting.
Great. So next up, we have Lucinda for tip amendments.
Hi, thanks everybody. We had a few just like administrative tip adjustments over March and April. So I'll read through them, and I have a memo. If you guys wanted, I can send it to you after the meeting. It's also in the tip, which is on the website, the MPO website. So in March, there was a preventative maintenance and system preservation and preventative maintenance for bridge groupings update. $250,000 was moved from the preventative maintenance for bridge grouping to the preventative maintenance and systems preservation grouping. The transfer was just to account for the actual obligations for the year for the state of good repair. The next adjustment was a jaunt adjustment. I think most of the rest are jaunt adjustments. So they increased operating assistance in fiscal year 2022. Their FTA funding increased $1,820,000. I'm sorry, yeah, 100. Yeah, that's right. And then they also increased their funding $140,000 for software, and their mobility management program in fiscal year 2022 increased funding of $85,000. The next adjustment was also in April, on April 4th, and it's for fiscal year 2022. John added $140,000 for fiscal year 2022 to purchase 14 automated passenger counters to install in their Connect commuter buses. The next adjustment was on April 26th, and it was also for John for fiscal year 2022. They changed, and this was just like, they changed the title from one of their categories to the title was Rehab Rebuild Buses, and the new title is Associated Capital Maintenance, and this was an FTA requested adjustment. There was no financial ramifications for that. And that's it for the tip for March and April.
Great. Any questions on that? All right, I guess we'll move on to regional transit vision.
So the regional transit vision plan is starting their next round of public engagement, kind of. So the first part will be to present to the RTP next Thursday, the 26th. And there'll be a 90-minute presentation from the consultants to go over what we've done so far. So the results of the first round of public engagement, and then also kind of what they found for the vision for the community. And then we had a 3-day workshop with the transit providers on kind of networking and how, like if we had a constrained, we did a constrained vision and an unconstrained vision. We produced some maps of routes and kind of services and how it would look if we were able to do the constrained vision or the unconstrained vision. Just a little side note, we made some assumptions for funding with the constrained vision. And we looked at the Central Virginia Transit Authority's model of how they collect revenue to kind of calculate how much we could collect if we formed an authority to pay for the vision. So this isn't really like a big part of the vision plan. The vision plan is to make kind of a vision of transit and services that we would like to see in our community. And then the governance study, which I'm talking about next, would be the second phase of how we would pay for those services that we want to see in our community. So the vision plan made those assumptions. The estimated amount of funding for the constrained vision is about $30 million a year. And again, like the governance study is going to work out how that would come in, how like all of that would happen. We don't really know yet. We're just making assumptions for the vision. So at the RTP meeting, we will be presenting the kind of draft visions for the RTP to comment on. They're the advisory committee for this project. We will then present, the consultants will, and I will then present to all of the Board of Supervisors for the Thomas Plan TJPDC region. So even the rural communities Board of Supervisors will get a presentation on this. And then we'll start the second round of public engagement, where we'll share this vision with the public to gather feedback. We will have a survey, and we will be conducting focus groups and some additional outreach to make sure that we reach our targeted audiences. So the RTP presentation is going to be longer and more in depth than the other presentations. The public is not able to comment at the RTP meetings except for at the beginning of the meeting. So I invite you to come to the meeting if you're interested in all the details and everything. For me, it's going to be fascinating. But unfortunately, we won't be able to take comments until June and July when the public comment period is open. However, you can email me. I'll get them to the right people. So that's the transit vision plan. I don't know if you have any questions.
That RTP meeting is this Thursday?
It's next Thursday, the 26th.
Okay.
At 4 o'clock.
Other questions? Guess not. Oh, Stephen, got hands up and waving.
Yeah, I'm having some real Zoom success this morning. I just wanted to briefly note on the transit vision plan, when we made the decision to take an unconstrained approach to the transit vision plan, I think that's the right place. A vision plan is the place where you should have an unconstrained vision, but I do think that there's a real challenge in trying to bridge the gap between that unconstrained plan and other plans like Cat and John's TDPs, where we should be decoding kind of what is the next step towards that long-term vision. And I think there's a challenge that if you're just looking at the price, an unconstrained vision plan is going to be out of step with the amount of money that we're spending on transit today. So I think it's a real challenge before us to communicate successfully what's the value of the plan to the community, not just that we're paying money and that money is going away and we're losing it, we're investing in something of value for the community. So I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge for us.
All right, so on to, I guess, the governance study.
So the governance study will go before the board, the CTB, to be approved, hopefully. And then we found a contractor, AECom, and we accepted their proposal on the contingency of funding. So we're ready to go. As soon as we get the funding announcement, we can work out an agreement with them. And we are currently working with them on revising and updating the scope of work, just a little bit, nothing major. And then we can start that study in July. I don't know if you guys have heard this several times. The governance study is going to look at how to fund the vision plan. And so the vision plan kind of made the assumptions and suggestion of forming something similar to the Central Virginia Transit Authority. So we're going to look at that as one option, but we're also going to work really hard to network with all of the stakeholders, including the rural communities, and kind of find out what works best for our community. The Regional Transit Authority, like the governance study, will tell us if that's a good option for us. If it is, what's a good model for it to work. The purpose of the governance study is to only look at the finances. So it's looking at forming a tool to bring in additional revenue for transportation and then allocate that revenue out. So it's not going to be looking at changing how CAD or any of the service providers are governed or run or anything like that. It's just bringing in money and putting it out for transit. It will include, because we want to include the rural counties, it will include funding for other transportation items related to transit. So it doesn't have to be transit services. It could be ped bike or other things like that, because we want to make sure that we're serving the rural communities as well. So I think that's all I have to say, unless there's any questions.
Did you all provide a scope for that as part of it?
Yeah, I can send that to you, Kevin.
And is there like a stakeholder committee for that one as well?
Yeah, so we're going to do a lot of outreach to like the board of supervisors. The Regional Transit Partnership will act as the advisory board again, but we're also planning a lot of meetings with the stakeholders. So that's all in the scope. I'll send it to you. It's still in draft form, but I can send you what we have.
Okay, and I think that's great to go in front of the board and the public and obviously the RTP, but I think probably trying to involve our finance and budget office a little more directly rather than the RTP. I know that because I think Jessica's reached out to you about the upcoming presentation, and just even putting that on a board agenda before our finance and budgeting office has seen that makes them nervous, because anytime you talk about money, they want to know about it before the board members hear about it. And since there's board members on the RTP, I think it would be good to make sure that staff level involvement is there throughout the process.
Thank you. So we were working with Trevor Henry at the county. Is there somebody from the budget and finance area that we can work with? Do you know who, Christine? You can tell me later.
Yeah, I was going to say offline, we can develop what that
okay.
key stakeholder list is going to look like to make sure we're involving staff.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, and Trevor would know who you need to work with, but you probably just need to make sure that you're asking that directly so that he knows what you're looking for. Because Trevor can sort of cover it, but I think we'd probably even rather have direct involvement with Nelsie Birch, our Director of Finance and Budget.
Okay.
Send us Michael Barnes. Did you be kind enough to copy me on that scope too, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for Lucinda. Every time that I've spoken to anybody about the RTA, they ask me, does that mean that Cat and John would merge? But you're saying that the governance study will not answer that question?
That is correct.
So when and how do we answer that question? Because I think it's a pretty important question.
So yeah, I think of this as like a lot of steps. You know, we have like the vision, and then we have how to fund the vision, and then we have how to collaborate and work more together and maybe start consolidating services. So that would be after the governance study. I think that once you set up a RTA, there's like a central location for the region for transit funding that collaboration will start to enhance, and you know, we can work on it. It's one step in many of getting there. One of the things is it's a governance study, so it will be looking at like who's making the decisions on transit funding and how transit services will be evaluated, so that we can continue giving, you know, allocating funding the most effectively for transit. So it will be starting to look at you know, the agencies working together, but and it will look at how we can make transit decisions equitably as a region, as opposed to like different entities having their different services and their different pots of money. So it's going to start the like consolidation, but it's not making any drastic changes or anything like that. It, you know, but it will be facilitating kind of the consolidation of transit into the region. But you can have kind of a regional transit plan and regional transit working together and not have like one transit provider. There, you know, it could still work out that there's multiple providers with different specialties or areas, as long as they're just working together.
I think it's also important to note, if I may, that we as staff at the PDC are going into this governance study without any assumptions or predictions on what's going to come out of the governance study. We're leaving it to the consultants to first do a deep dive into what is the existing funding, how are decisions being made locally with transit funding, and then making recommendations on what is the best structure for us to pursue in order to increase the revenue that's coming in and further remove any duplication or increase cooperation in order to best serve the region. But I think it would be premature of us to say, following this study, we're going to be able to predict that they're going to assume any particular structure. We know an authority is one they're looking at. We know there's several different ways to form that authority, but we're going to leave it to the consultants to walk us through the process to evaluate that.
And what timeline are we looking at for this? Like, we're not, I guess, at this rate going to be able to get recommendations for the General Assembly for next session, right? Are we looking at the session after that?
Yeah, we're still in the process of revising that scope. We've made a request of the consultants. And I want to make sure we qualify. We have not done a notice to proceed. This is all, we have not yet been determined that we have this funding. But we are in the process of revising the scope and asking them to shorten the timeline. Originally, it was an 18-month scope. We would like it to be closer to a 14, 16-month scope so that we are eligible if we need to apply for another technical assistance grant come February of 2024. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yes, 2024. And so it would likely not be going to the General Assembly in this next session. But again, that scope is still a draft and it's still being revised as we go.
Well, okay, wait, so, but if we're applying for a new grant in February 2024, does that mean we're also missing the 2024 session? Or would that be while we're lobbying for authority?
I think we will in parallel be working with our state representatives throughout that entire process to see what kind of support there is for this at the state level. But what I'm talking about as far as another grant is if it requires additional study. So for example, if coming out of that governance study, they're suggesting any type of, you know, operational merger or something that requires a little bit of a deeper dive, we want to be able to put that in the next round of technical assistance grant funding.
Gotcha, okay, thanks. Other questions on governance? All right, we will move on to rideshare. Do we have Sarah here? We do not.
Okay, I can do that. The Afton Express, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the Afton Express has increased ridership, which is awesome. And they're still doing some marketing campaigns to continue that. And we're doing Clean Commute Month this month with Jaunt, Cat, and UTS. Everybody's kind of combined marketing with it. We have prizes from some bike shops and Stonefield's shopping center. And we have winners for the first 2 weeks. We're doing a weekly drawing of people. We ask people to post pictures of themselves clean commuting with the hashtag Clean Commute Charlotte's Seaville. And yeah, it's happening. There's a lot of prizes. So if you post a picture, you'll probably win something. And I think the Stonefield gift certificates are $50 or something. So it's pretty good. That's all with that. That's all I have for rideshare.
Well, thanks. Any questions, comments? All right, on to OIB.
Yeah, so as you all know, as we prepare for the long range transportation plan, we've been working with a consultant team from the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment, and that does include staff from Charlottesville and Albemarle as well. So we're trying to work to coordinate all of our planning prioritization efforts to some extent. We have discussed with them what our internal staff capacity is as far as them developing a methodology that we can use to evaluate projects. So it looks like we're going to be using a heavily GIS-based process for prioritization. And so our next conversation with them is to look at what kind of measures other MPOs have used to determine what might be appropriate for our purposes in prioritizing both system needs and projects in our long range transportation plan update. I think the balance that we're trying to really achieve is like metrics that measure the things that are really important to us while also not creating a huge amount of additional effort in order to be able to use, knowing that we have a relatively small staff. And so that's something that we're looking forward to getting input from. I've also just as we're talking about this, I've also been working on drafting the scope of work for the long range transportation plan. And so probably you won't hear anything about this in July related to the OIP work that we're doing, but I'm hoping to come back to you all in the fall to have some progress and have some more specific information to share with you about where we are and the work that we've been doing and what we've come up with to give you all an opportunity to provide us with some feedback on the direction we're heading and see what kind of comments you might have. Any questions on that? I'm happy to answer.
Anyone? All right, let's move on to roundtable updates right on time. All right, so I guess we have time. So for a change, we can go around the room. I guess we'll start with TJPDC, Christine.
The only update that I have is we still have an open planner 2 through 4 position that we are actively recruiting for. It would certainly be lovely to fill that as soon as possible, especially with Sandy going away on maternity leave in the next 3 months. But we are very, very hopeful that going into FY23, we can be at full capacity and all positions filled. So we're down to filling that 1 planner position. But otherwise, the majority of the updates you guys have heard.
Great. Bill, UVA.
Nothing new that I can think of. I talked to Becca the other day. She just mentioned the on-demand service that they've rolled out for like off-hour student transportation has been really successful, and they're just continuing to, tweak it so that it's the best option, works the best for students. One thing they need, they need to work on is people ordering a ride and then not being there. So perhaps that's something to work on. But overall, it's been working pretty well for all parties involved. And then beyond that, we'll be going into the summer schedule, so you can check the UTS website if you are interested in knowing what the bus headways are and stuff and the routes. And then kind of on the planning side, I know they're working to better accommodate the large number of mopeds, as well as for rent scooters and personal scooters that, electric scooters that we have on ground. So just working on strategies for that. That's about all I have right now.
Great. Jessica, Kevin, County.
I'll throw in a few things and Jessica wants to add to it. So our application for revenue sharing for the Eastern Avenue connector was funded in the draft 6-year plan. So it looks like we're going to be able to move forward with that project. That's that extension of Eastern Avenue from in Crozet from West Hall down to Corey Farms and to 250. So a really big project for the county, and looking forward to moving forward on that. On Thursday afternoon, we have our final public meeting for the US 29 North Corridor study. So that'll be going on from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, Zoom, if anybody needs information on that. I'm happy to share it. I think it's actually on our calendar, our Albemarle County calendar, so you can probably get the information there. I think that's really all I have for us right now. And Jessica, am I missing anything?
Yeah, also on that draft 6-year plan, they've included the microtransit demo program. So we're looking forward to working with Kat on that.
Great, thanks. Donna, welcome to the MPO Tech Committee. Do you have any updates from TTAC for us?
I don't. We haven't had our meeting this month yet, so.
Fair. Well, thanks for coming. Welcome. Let's see. Chuck, Michael, have anything from BDOT beyond what we've already got?
Not really. I mean, we're basically working on smart scale applications and developing the sketches and cost estimates. We're having a few things that we'll probably have to work out. I know that for the Hickory crossing that we were looking at for 5th Street extended, it's not something, because of the geometry and the speed, we'll probably not be able to include that with that 5th Street shared use path project. Jessica and Kevin, so just give you a heads up on that. It's probably going to be more than what we had scoped for the project, because we'll probably have to do some geometric improvements down there to actually put that in, which are outside of the purview of what we were looking at for that project. But other than that, I think everything else is going smoothly. And like Kevin said, we've got the 29 North public meeting on Thursday, so hopefully everybody can attend and participate in that. We've got a lot of good information that we'll be presenting on alternatives, and we want to get the feedback from the public. We also will have a Metro Quest survey going live on Wednesday or Thursday also, that to collect public comment on that as well. Kevin,
Great, thanks.
Michael, you got anything else?
No, I think you covered everything pretty well. I'd just like to say that I was out for 6 days with the Hughley trial. I was on the jury there, and then I had 2 weeks of almost all day training. So I've been feel like I've been gone for about 3 weeks, but I want to follow up with some of you guys about just informal lunches like we were trying to do before, just to get to know people better and really catch up on what's going on with transportation in our community.
Great, thanks. And just a note on the 29 North Carter study, it looks like on the VDOT website, and I think the MPO or JPDC has a website for it too. Neither of them mention that meeting. They still say, join us for an online public meeting on September 9th, 2021. So I don't know who manages those, but not that anyone will probably see it between here and then, but it would be nice to update them.
Yeah, I'm working with communications folks to get ours updated this week. So hopefully we'll have it updated. We didn't want to put anything out there until Thursday, so that's why it really hasn't been updated. But we will post the links to the survey as well as the documentation from the meeting this week.
Great, thanks. Juwan, anything from Kat?
We'll be presenting 2 different studies, I guess, next month at the RTP. So keep an eye out for that. We did launch our new alternate fuel feasibility study. So that just launched. We had 1 meeting and we're going to start working through that and flesh it all out. But that's an addendum to our capital improvement project and all that. So we got quite a bit going on, and we're trying to, get these changes, studies done so we can start working on the changes for all the improvements we want to do.
Awesome, thanks. And then, so is anything happening with those route changes? Are they still on hold?
Yeah, they're still on hold, but that'll be part of next month's, the June RTP presentation.
Cool, sounds good. Luis, anything happening at the county on the planning commission side?
Pretty good. Nothing that I would say worthy reporting at this moment.
All right, thanks. And then on the city side, I guess the big news, next Tuesday, not exactly sure when, probably 5 p.m. I think, there will be a joint work session between the planning commission and the city council on kind of deciding what to do about Fish Street, and I guess figuring out what that smart scale application due in August is going to be. I think it's still pretty up in the air. They've been doing some charrettes. So I guess they'll be presenting what they've learned from the community and kind of staff and the consultants idea. And I'm not entirely sure on whether we're coming to a decision or just discussing it, but the big public meeting on that will be next Tuesday. And then later this month, we're expecting the first report from the consultants and staff on what to do with our zoning rewrite, kind of just the general overall bird's eye vision of it. And then that will be going to an extensive public engagement process this summer. I think that is pretty much it for the city. Did I miss anyone? I think I got everyone. All right, great. Any other business or discussion? I guess we've got additional matters from the public. We have one member of the public here who never speaks and only listens. Sean, you got anything to say to us? Nope, guess not. All right, well, I guess we are adjourned. Thank you all very much and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.